bring you and sponsor a amazing webinar today. The topic of today's webinar is hypnosis, prognosis, the real methods to close anything. And we are just a little bit about us, and then I really want to spend most of the time talking about Neil. We are a software company. We've been at this over a decade, and so we get the chance to really see a global view of the industry, the economy, and would love to be a resource for any of you if you need anything or have any questions in regards to recruiting software or need any help. But today's topic, I think, is a great topic because at the end of the day, we're all in the sales profession, and I believe that what Neil's going to bring to us today is going to be really impactful, that we can take back to our desk and help us to all be more productive. So kind of on to today's presenter. Neil Leibovitz has really an amazing success story. He is currently the president and COO of ARG, one of the nation's premier recruiting agencies, and also the founder of the Dynamic Sale, which is an industry training and development company. Prior, though, to his current duty and current roles, he's had just a really amazing success story. And so I want to give you a little bit of background before he jumps into his presentation today. Neil was a global president for Adecco, one of the world's largest staffing and recruiting firms, where he sat on the global executive team. He was also the president and COO of Agilon, professional staffing of North America. He oversaw a number of offices, and I think what's most impressive is the level of growth that both those organizations experienced under his leadership and mentorship. He's really seen and done just about everything from permanent and temporary staffing to branch management roles, regional management, and I think the impressive thing is that not only has he been in those senior executive level roles, is that he's worked his way into those roles. So no matter where you find yourself today in your position, he's been there, and I think that's something he can relate to. So all of you can take something away from today's webinar and know that Neil has been in your shoes, and I think that is a huge testament to where Neil has been in his career. Lastly, I would just like to mention this, is that I always say that you look at somebody's measurement of success by the legacy they leave, and I always say that Neil is leaving an amazing legacy in the recruiting and staffing industry, and I consider him a true trailblazer in the industry. With that being said, I'd love to turn it over to Neil, have him talk a little bit about the agenda of the webinar. And today's webinar topic, again, is hypnosis, prognosis, the real methods to close anything. And what you're going to learn today is a little bit more about how to close more job orders, how to increase your billings, how to walk away more productive, and how to increase your revenues. So with that being said, buckle your seatbelts, get ready for a wild and crazy and fun time, and I will turn this webinar back over to Neil.
Holy cow, what an intro. And the pressure, Jonathan, to deliver now is obscene. Buckle yourselves in. I guess this has to be really fun now. We always make it fun, everyone, so thanks so much for joining. Content first and foremost before humor. That's the key thing. So we're going to get right into it, but I did just want to mention, so you know who I am. I'm not going to tell you anymore. Jonathan did a great job of describing me. All right, why am I doing this? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. One, it's a great way for me to connect with people on LinkedIn, so please look me up later or when you get my follow-up email for the PDFs, which you will all get these handouts. Check your email later on. Make sure you connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got about 4,000 industry connections, all that sort of fun stuff. I also would love everybody, and this is great exposure because about half of you out there have never seen my training, and I offer the best free content on the web. Free, yeah, I charge for plenty of other stuff, but I got a ton of free stuff that comes through email. So sign up right now at thedynamicsale.com, or again, just do it right after. When you go there, you're going to see a pop-up for independent recruiting .com. That's the ARG site, where I'm now also the president of both companies. And ARG is a premier agency. We're also pioneers, but we really work with independent agents or small firms that want to work together. And I'm not going to go into a commercial for it here, okay? So I'd love you all to check out ARG. A shout out to Q, and I saw John's on the call today. They're agents at our firm. It's an unbelievable place for a lot of you to call home. It's ironically, and I guess it's not ironically, but I was in the position to help reselect the front office system for ARG, and I'm going to tell you without question, we continued with sendouts. So that is the front office system that we use. I love it. I personally use it. And Jonathan gave me a great intro. Again, this isn't about commercial. It's going to be all content here going forward. But I got to tell you, love their style. I mean, you could tell with Jonathan and everyone, they have that sort of young MO, really fun, really dedicated to the client. I mean, you will get the best customer service. I have referred 3 clients now officially that have taken on, not Bullhorn, have switched from some of the others and taken on sendouts. So again, I urge you, if you're one of my followers and you're looking for a front office system, contact Jonathan. Tell him Neil sent you. Okay, enough about that. You guys have the links. You guys get that later. So look, this is so much to talk about. And we'll do our best. We'll definitely get it all in by the time the call's out. We book them for an hour and a half. We usually go about an hour, but this was probably going to take us pretty close to the end because I tried to cut back on some stuff, but this is really great stuff that right now the key is you're doing it and you're using bits and pieces of this every day. Right, so the great thing about this is it's called hypnotic selling, right? Hypnosis prognosis, and you'll see a bunch of things that it's been called, but what it does is, and it's what I really loved, I needed a meaning to sales, right? I needed a logical way to make this happen. I mean, maybe it's because I used to be a CPA, but whatever it was, I needed a foundation. And once you learn how to tap into human nature, so many things happen. You get what you want. So it could take away a lot of the salesy elements, or I should say, at least if you're going to do the salesy stuff, you're going to do it in a way that's the most effective to convince people, right? So look, there's tons of products that are geared to all different industries out there. Mind control, even the winning friends and influencing people. That's exactly what that's about, the famous Dale Carnegie stuff. Conversation hypnosis, power persuasion, again, hypnotic selling. Right, all different terms of the same thing. And again, it's getting into the mindset of what makes people tick and analyzing the most powerful persuasion techniques. So I'm going to share those with you. I don't know, there are about a half a dozen, a little bit more, bullet points for you about what these techniques are. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn them into really awesome tips. And again, you should probably be able to think of them on your own, but I'm going to leave you with great tips of how you can implement this. Okay, now, the great news is I really toyed with what I was going to call this thing. Why is that great news? Because I hate your traditional motivational speaker. So when people call me a motivational speaker, don't get me wrong, I love that they're fun. I love that people really tend to love the webinars, and I love that I motivate people. But I'm not one that believes in all this fluff. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to run into a seminar and say, hey, I feel great. How you feeling? Well, I just ran 38 miles this morning and I drank 23 eggs. And right, I don't relate to these people terribly well. But I don't like really fluffy stuff. But I love this stuff because it makes sense and you can relate to all of it. The stuff just works. So what I want you to do is think about what I'm going to tell you. And again, I think it's all going to be obvious when we're done because they're all things that you know work for you. And I want you to think about, oh yeah, I recognize this. It's in our job order training. Or it's in the debrief training that we had. Or wow, when I go on client visits, so we talk about this, some of the training that I had or some of the courses. But what I want you to do is recognize why it's there and why it works. And now don't make it an afterthought, but make that a major focus about what you're doing. So again, enjoy it. We're going to get right into the whole concept. And what really lies behind all of this is most of what I'm going to talk to you about are emotional appeals. And they're not just appeals in the selling sense, but they are emotional strategies. And those of you who have taken any sort of sales course should have learned that the key to selling anything, the key to influencing people, is by using emotion. And this is a quote that really, you've got to remember this for the rest of your selling lives. And if you haven't heard it before, remember that people buy. They buy, they make decisions, they're convinced, they're persuaded for emotional reasons. People make decisions, they're persuaded for emotional reasons, but they justify it with logic. Okay? So people are convinced for the emotional reasons, but then they justify it with logic. So you need to give both. There are salespeople out there that tend to be very, very emotional driven in your appeals, in your pitches, and that's great. But you can't do it without the logic, because people need that logic for the justification process. Something goes on in the mind when someone's being convinced. Their mind has made up, their gut has made up the decision, but they can't go by a gut, so they need the pen and paper. They need the logical points. Okay. Similarly, the majority of salespeople sell based upon logic. The benefits that you offer, the great, the size of the company, yada, yada, how much money it's paying, right? But you're never bringing in the emotional side. So all you're giving them is stuff to justify the decision, but you're not giving them the emotion that they need, the right brain function, the creative side, all that fun stuff. And this is something that you just always need to remember anytime you're in a selling mode, whether it's trying to recruit someone, whether it's trying to create a send-out, via a matching call to a client or a candidate, whether it's actually trying to pitch a candidate for a send-out, trying to get someone to get an offer, get a job, get an appointment, have them give you more business, whatever. You always need to think, am I selling on the emotional side or the logical side? So, in about a second, you're going to see a slide pop up here right now. Now, I want to ask you this. Why do people buy these things? Why do people buy a Movado watch? Is it logic or emotion? Think about it. A BMW, the iPad, the Marc Jacobs bag. Now, again, these are all dear to me for many reasons, because the BMW, of course, is a car that everyone aspires to. I have every iPod and Apple gadget in the world. Marc Jacobs, the famous designer, I went to high school with Marc, and I shared a tent with him for one summer. No, I'm not gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I did share a tent with him completely. Okay, enough of that. But I shared a tent with him, 4 guys, and who knew he would become a multi-gazillionaire. But he sells bags like this for $2,300. So if you were to ask people, hey, that's a nice Movado watch. Why'd you buy it? Well, you're going to hear, well, they've got, it's very precise, and it's got a sapphire crystal, right? That's what Movado. Well, you got the sapphire crystal, and it's Swiss made, so it's, really rugged, doesn't scratch easily. All right, but that's not why they bought the Movado watch. They bought the Movado watch, they bought the Rolex because of what it means emotionally, the feeling that it gave them, that they've arrived, that they deserve it, that they earn it. Same deal with a car, like a BMW, right? It's all about the excitement that it builds. Hey, why'd you buy that, Marc Jacobs bag? And hopefully this is just to the ladies out there. Well, the stitch, and I've done this in live seminars. Some of you out there have seen it. Well, no, I mean, he picks the best leather that exists out in the world. It's great leather. Yeah, it's great leather, okay, yes, because it's not cheap leather crap, but it's not any better than a $400 bag, which, that leather that he gets you that's so great for the $2,300 bag, I don't know, costs $40 maybe. Well, the stitching is phenomenal. My point is, people buy for emotional reasons, and they back it up with logic. The Movado one's hysterical because that's the first watch that I got when I got into recruiting, and I started in 1988, and that's what meant that I really finally got there. And I love the people that say, no, I bought it because it's really precise. Really? Look at the Movado watch. That's what always cracks me up because I hear this all the time in live seminars. And this is a live webinar, but I mean when people are live in a conference room. Look at the Movado. You're telling me you bought it because it's precise? It has no second hands, and it doesn't even have numbers. So what time is the Movado on there right now? It's somewhere between 10:08 and 10:11, right? You didn't buy it because it's precise. All right, you guys get the point, okay? So we're going to use this emotion throughout, and these are all of the different techniques that are key. One of the basic ones that I'm going to start as a foundation that I want you to think about is people are convinced by what they like and what they say. Now, I know you all get in sales, right? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should listen in that ratio. We get all those things. And we know that words are important. We know that emotions are important. But understand, we always have to sell and talk back in terms of what they want to hear. We know that, right? The what's in it for me, WIIFM. But think about it. People are convinced by what they say, how they say it. In other words, people are convinced if you talk to them in the same language, in the same words. Now, there's all sorts of fluffy stuff, which I do believe in some of this, with mirroring, and I was taught to sit the exact same way as your client is sitting across and to use the same intonation, and it all works for the same reason. All I'm saying is I want you to start using your front office systems really effectively now. This isn't the day of manual, working where you'd have to have all these cards and notes. When you are taking a job order, when someone is giving you any sort of a word, I want you to think 2 things. One, I want you to think, what words do they constantly use? What are their words? Because that's going to be what you're going to underline or you're going to put into your send-out system, your whatever front office system you have, and you're going to know that precise, the word precise keeps coming up with Neil. Precise is a big word, precise. So when you talk to me about candidates or you talk to me about the way that you guys do the business, you're going to want to use the word precise when you sell to Neil. And it's that simple. But you need to capture it somewhere, and you need to recognize words that you hear over and over again. Because when you say precise again, that's going to be much, much more effective. Now, if you also remember, well, of course you do, because that's all we talked about for the most part, is that people are convinced for emotional reasons. So we want to get to the emotional root of every single word that we get, as many as we can. And this is what I call the 3-step approach. Now, you can use this in any conversation, but anytime you get any word and you're about to write down that, all right, this is an adjective that the client likes, I want you to know the first step is writing down what that word is, okay? So, for example, again, you could do this on an interview as well. You can do this on when you're taking a job order. But, Mr. Client, what's the most important thing you're looking for the next candidate? I'm looking for someone that's really precise. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2, anyone, if you can guess the next question, what do you think it is? I always want you to clarify. Always. From now on, always. We're not doing it just to be better salespeople, but we're doing it to get to the emotional root. Okay, so when you say precise, what do you mean by precise? I don't care what the word is. I want someone that's a team player. Okay, hey, what do you mean by a team player? Okay, I want someone that's not a clock watcher. What do you mean by a clock watcher? I want an opportunity that's fast-paced. Hey, what do you mean by fast-paced? Always, from now on, I don't care if it's ridiculously obvious. You want to get into their head and know what they're thinking and stop assuming. Because the game of convincing, again, is getting into their head using their words and their emotions. Okay? So that's really, really key. So first step is what is the word? Second step is, well, what does that mean to you or how do you define it? Right? Tell me about that. And then if you can guess what the third one is, most people don't guess this one. What do you think? It's why. So the third step is why. So what's the word? What does that mean to you? Why, why did you say that? Why is that important? Describe that to me, or rather describe it, and then why. Why is that important? Okay? So I'm looking for someone that's really precise. Well, what do you mean by precise? I mean someone that checks over their work before they hand it in and they know that there's no simple errors or mistakes. Okay, gotcha. Well, why is that important to you? Because we're a really small department, and when someone at this level hands me something, I expect that it's done, and I've been made to look like a jackass before. Okay, so again, think about what that's doing. Precision really comes down to what emotion? Okay, so if you're going to sell precision, it's the pride of his staff. It's the embarrassment of the staff, right? That's what this person's talking about. So when you're trying to convince them that, look, you need to hire this person because their references say how unbelievably precise they are, what the references are going to talk about, what you're going to talk about is, yeah, they're precise. Listen to this story. Okay, this person used to produce, the notes that went out to all the analysts at the conference, and if there was ever one mistake on it, it would be Egg on Everyone's right, yada, yada, yada. Three-step approach. Use it in the interview. Use it everywhere. I'm looking for growth. What do you mean by growth? Okay, and why is that important to you? And you're going to write down the exact words that you hear over and over again. Okay, we're going to use that all over the place, and I'm going to allude and show you later that there's positive emotions and there's negative emotions. Okay, here's another one that's really big. This has to do with objections, and this is really classic hypnosis. As you know, when you look at hypnosis, hypnosis is really setting expectations, telling people what they feel, what they see. And if you believe in the watch going back and forth and people see people in their underwear, then you'll really buy into this. But from a simple perspective, there's something that legendary Anthony Robbins talked about in a sales course I took probably 25 years ago. And I love his phrasing. I've never tried to create my own to make it mine. I'm happy to give credit where credit's due. But it's called killing the monster while it's tiny. Killing the monster while it's tiny. Now, what he means by that is he calls this basically pre-framing an objection. So can you hypnotize someone to not believe that a crappy physical location doesn't exist? Sort of. What you actually do is you change the expectation. And by changing the expectation, you change the perception. Right? So what you can do is you know that there's going to be an objection. Right? And the objection is, my God, this isn't a hellhole, this client location. Everyone I send there has some sort of a comment. Or the first person I sent, it's a new client, said, my God, the building is disgusting, it's dilapidated, I'm worried for my safety. What you want to do is set the expectation with the person that, listen, when you go on this appointment, the first thing that's going to jump out at you is you're not going to be happy with the location. Okay, and again, you want to embellish that as much as you can without risking them saying, screw it, I'm not going. Okay, so again, if they're going to really do that and you're truthful, then you'll never overcome that objection. But the point is, you're going to say, listen, you're going to go there and the place is a bit run down. You know, boy, you might even be worried about your safety when you go there and you're wondering, what the heck did Neil just get me into? But I got to tell you, as soon as you walk in that building and as soon as you see the people and as soon as you sit down with Sally, you're going to find X, Y, and Z. Now, what that does is it changes the perception. So instead of them just having this come out of left field, you've addressed it and you told them how to put it into perspective. And I'm telling you, it works all the time. It's making the objection seem worse than it really is, which is another concept that we'll get into, to a degree later on. Okay, so hey, and what you can't see in the slide right now is underneath setting expectations says what you will find is X. You're going to find that Neil is one of the best candidates that you've ever interviewed. Okay, any sort of word that you use like that when you set expectation is really hypnosis in its rarest form, and it does work. So again, all I'm suggesting is, let's say you're skeptical of it. You need to get these selling points across. Just get in the habit of saying, listen, let me tell you what you're going to find. Okay, once you start talking to him, you're going to say that he's awesome. You're going to say that he's the most precise guy you've ever met. You can say stuff like that, which you're saying anyway. I'm telling you just to set it in terms of expectations, of hypnosis. Okay, here's another huge one now. Huge, massive power of persuasion across the board. People want what they can't have. Think about that. People want what they can't have. It is innate in us. It is just a highly emotional area. Maybe it's we're not evolved enough. It's, hey, it's even in the 10 Commandments not to be jealous, right? But this is what motivates people. And look, it was like that if those of you who are still dating, you remember when you used to date, right? I mean, you would be attracted to the person that you couldn't have more. And very often there's guys and gals out there that when you do date and you were finally able to have them, you weren't so into it once you finally got them. So, there's this concept is that the more you make something perceived to be difficult, the greater the challenge that people have to work for something will dictate how strong this emotion is. So if we know, and again, you Google top power persuasion tools or whatever, any of these things for any industry, again, people, you name it, you're going to be amazed at how you're going to see people want what they can't have being one of the top ones everywhere. Okay? So this is also the concept of scarcity. You might have heard that. You see it on marketing campaigns, internet campaigns. Hey, there's only 10 minutes left till you can act on this. There's only 20 minutes left. These Obama commemorative plates, which I love that one, we're not going to make any more. That's right, people. We've already made 30,000 of them, but if they sell out now, no one else is going to. Right. You made a freaking Obama plate when he became president, and you're not going to make any more? That cracks me up. They're plates. All right. So you get my point. Right, so, but the concept of scarcity, you want to have this, create this competition. You need to create this challenge because people want what they have to work harder for is the corollary of this, or what they think they might not be able to get. So here are what the tips look like, and just think about this. That means that every time you present a candidate, and again, I'm not talking to those of you out there who just send in 40 resumes. I mean those of you who present, you know, with 2, 3 candidates, right? And I want a story about how marketable they are, all of them. I don't care if you sound like a broken record. It's the truth, or it should be the truth, right? Hey, listen, this person is really going to be fast off the market. Listen, I want you to meet Bill, okay? Bill is a top candidate. He's working with 2 search firms right now. This guy could write his own ticket. If you decide you like Bill, you're going to need to sell to Bill, okay? Let your client know, I'm not sure if you can land them, right? Understand that, and understand when you put your client in sales mode, which is what you should be doing during your client briefs and preps, you need to, it will help you dramatically. Because again, your clients, just by being in sales mode, they have to work harder for this person. Intangibly and emotionally, they're going to want the person more, okay? That's when you can give them the hot buttons. Look, the key for Steve is team players. He wants to work with team players. What he meant by that was this. Here's why it's important to him. All right, this will be really key. Okay, and again, you can fill it with stories about how clients are drooling, yada, yada, yada. And again, you're going to use the words that your clients used before. You're going to plant these emotional seeds. You're going to use all these little techniques. And then again, they sprout later. So again, in terms of people want, you know, people where there's a challenge, always make a challenge. On the candidate side, make every job interview hard to get. Never tell anyone they're a shoo-in. Look, you can absolutely flatter people. You want to. But let them know, okay, now that we got that done, I think you're awesome for this. You have 10 of the 10 things on paper that they want, but this company is really picky. My phone rings off the hook by candidates that want that job. You're not going to get a second chance after this interview unless you really do well. Okay? I'm not sure I could even get it for you. I don't even know if I can get you to see them. Understand what this does, right? It makes them want it more. That's why you're never going to give that glowing feedback. Oh, my God, they loved you. You're awesome. You kicked booty. This is phenomenal. Okay? Always find some sort of concern. Always. Never lie, because, again, if you do your debriefs right, you're always going to ask clients, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you get? I might give them an 8.5, solid 8.5. Okay, well, what's missing to make it a 10? Well, I never give 10s. All right, well, what's missing to make it a 9? He could have been a little bit more outgoing. What do you mean by outgoing? Well, someone that has not as shy or timid. Well, why is that important to you, right? So we do all that, but again, we'll use that then for the candidate. And if not, then we make up our own. Look, I got to be honest, you did really well. I really want to get you to go back, but I do have some concerns about this being able to move forward, okay? And give them whatever thought you had about any weakness that they had. Okay, again, you see that your selling is going to be telling them these stories. These stories are all very important. If, again, do your research on Google, you're going to see one of the most powerful tools on the planet is this one, that people want something that's harder to get. The easier something is to get, or the perception that something's easy to get, they're going to want it less, all things being equal, okay? So I need you to work with that, and I need you to work with that well. Okay, here's another one that's super powerful, and it's something so easy that everyone can do, and it's the concept of reciprocity. Reciprocity. Well, what does that mean? It means quid pro quo, which I cannot say that without thinking of Hannibal Lecter. Quid pro quo. I can't even do Hannibal Lecter. Did the lambs frighten you, send-outs, webinar people? See, the worst thing about a webinar is I don't know if you're looking into the screen right now and going, this guy's lost his mind. And all right, we haven't lost anyone. That's good. And that was a horrible Hannibal Lecter. Reciprocity, quid pro quo, give and take, right? If you give, you get back more. But I need you to think about that because it's an amazingly powerful tool. You saw it in the 70s with, going way back, I'm dating myself, the Hare Krishnas, right? They would always in the airport, right, airplane, you saw they would start punching out the guys, but they would always give you, their little, gift. The veterans on the street, before asking for money, would give you the flag. They'd give you a pen. It's why you get little gifts. From a lot of people. A great example you'll see for any industry is, you look at free grocery samples. Now, I'm not talking about, the Costco's of the world, although I will say they absolutely have reciprocity. But it's when, you go in and you see this little old lady there, doling out some chili, and, you do it, well, you feel a little bit like you need to give back. They just gave you some free chili, and when the old lady says, would you mind buying a jar of chili? What are you going to say? You're like, oh, yeah, what the heck, I'll throw it in my closet, right? So, again, even if we don't relate to that level of reciprocity, we all see it on the timeshares. My goodness, how difficult are the timeshare? We know what they're going to do, but they flew us down. They get paid for our airfare. They put us up in a nice hotel. Why is it so difficult for us to say no? Why do so many of you end up saying yes, even though you regret it later? I'm not saying timeshares are all bad. I'm just saying think about that feeling that you have, right? That guilt kind of that you have. It's a huge, huge emotional area. It's why I give so much free stuff away. Now, again, sign up for my stuff at thedynamicsale.com. Big deal. You can always unsubscribe. But I can't begin to tell you how many clients just took my free stuff, gave it to even their employees, and it helped them dramatically. Hey, when it was time for them to buy something, when they wanted to put someone through boot camp or whatever, there was a real onus to give it back to Neil. Now, you can do this tremendous amounts of ways simply by giving and giving for free. Okay, and look, you could even get this by returning all phone calls, which, by the way, we did a study in my old company, Adecco, and they spent millions and millions of dollars. And CareerBuilder recently did one showing that, the biggest complaint that people have, besides not having the job itself, right, which I think that's an obvious one, the next one that was biggest on the temp or perm side of the business was not getting their phone calls returned. So just by doing that, even though you don't have enough hours in the day, you will land tremendous clients and credibility. Again, that's reciprocity. It shouldn't be returning a phone call, but I'm telling you, it will. You treat these people great. Give free stuff. Give free client assessments. Give free resume assessments. Give free advice. That's why you want to take notes when you're on a client visit or a call. That's why you want to look at their LinkedIn profile, see that they like tennis, see that they like golf, see that they love baking, whatever it is. And that's why you're going to want to spend 18 seconds on the web and sending them great links about baking or tennis or golf. And respectively, I should say, right? We know that you're going to send the golf stuff to the golf people, not the baking to the tennis guy, right? You get that. Right, but that's why you want to do that. It's for reciprocity. The fact that you're going out of your way and you're giving them something. It's the reason why you want to ask if there's anything you can help with that has nothing to do with the business. Well, you know what? Yeah, you know what? Actually, my daughter, my son, my niece, my nephew is looking for work. Would you mind taking a look at his or her resume? You want to do that because it is priceless. Okay? It is priceless. So reciprocity is key, and I am telling you, once you establish that with your client, A, that will lead to getting more job orders. It'll lead to getting more candidates on the candidate side. And your clients will view candidates coming from you differently. Okay, so Again, you can use lots of things for reciprocity, but never, never underestimate how critical it is. All right, here's another one, right? Another major power persuasion. What makes people really move? And this one, you know, but I want you to think about this. People are motivated hugely by social proof, and compelling evidence, which is what social proof is. Social proof and compelling evidence. What is that? Well, it's when you tell third-party stories. It means that if you could show that other people value your candidate, i.e. a great tailored reference check, they value your service, a testimonial, whatever, right? Then they'll buy that a lot more than you telling them how great you are. People will always be more persuaded by what others think or say than by what you think or say. And as salespeople, the better we get, the more proud we are of our sharp tongues. But they will always be more persuaded by what others do or say. You've probably heard of the old, objection handling technique called feel, felt, found. It's a real old one. It's been used so much that I understand exactly how you feel, Mr. Client, because some of my prospects felt exactly the same way when I first called them. But what they found was, by working with me, life would be great, right? That's feel, felt, found. But what's wonderful about feel, felt, found is the felt and the found part are all third-party testimonials. It's compelling evidence. It's saying, hey, listen, I get what you're saying. Let me tell you why Sony said that we are by far the best preferred provider they've ever added onto their list. Right? It's, again, third party, and it's really big. And you need to use social proof and compelling evidence. And, again, compelling, detailed, a story. Compelling evidence that convinces all the time. So what do I want you to do? I want you to think about every time you're in selling mode, anytime you're talking about I or me or what you're saying about the candidate, why you love them. Okay, you're a bit of a third party, but not enough, right? When you're telling someone about a company, how great they are, why you want to work there, anything ever, I need you to stop yourself and say, well, wait a minute. Social proof is far, far more emotional. Which is why, again, you've heard throughout this webinar, I use stories, right? We're using stories about the phone ringing off the hook, how badly this person wants that. Okay, those are all compelling evidence, social proof. So I need you to have testimonials everywhere for yourself in order to market candidates, in order to recruit candidates. Testimonials, use these during all your objection handling. Forget about the techniques that you've learned for now. You can still use them. But an objection, no thanks, you're not on the approved list. We're happy with the agencies we're working with. Look, awesome. My clients are loyal too. But listen, let me tell you why Sony, okay, or whatever it is. I understand what you're saying, but literally, every single client that ever meets with me ends up making me one of their top 3. Why? Let me tell you about Steve. I had the same call with him last week. In fact, he hung up on me twice, and it wasn't until the third call he let me get as far as I'm getting with you. And you know what? He realized, you know what? You had a lot of great things to say. He had nothing to lose by meeting with this guy. He's been in the industry. He's been a trainer, whatever. And you know what? He's really glad that I did it. So what I'm asking for is 10 minutes of your time, right? Understand it's social proof. I'm telling you about Steve and what Steve thought of Neil. Okay, the more you can put this on print in your websites, the better. You see testimonials everywhere. They're all over the place. They need to be all over your marketing material. They need to be all over your website. They need to be all over your emails. Now, here's one that stumps people. In my live seminars, I'll say, let's come up with some great example. How can we use testimonials for candidates? Okay, well, inevitably, a couple will say, reference checks are testimonials, and they are. So are you using reference checks effectively? Is your evidence compelling? Are they compelling in your reference checks? So what I mean by that is for now on, when you use your reference checks, use them as social proof, not as a byproduct so you don't get sued, not as a because our client asked for them. Don't go phew when the client doesn't ask for them. I want you to use them and tailor them to the job order from now on. So when you have a candidate in the running, I need you to call back the reference, say, I know we already checked one. Well, now I have a client that's going in, and I got to tell you, one of the biggest things they're looking for is precision. And I need to talk about their precision. How careful were they? How many mistakes did they make? Would you, this new boss needs to take their material and they send it out to the board regularly. He doesn't review it. How much would you trust your future in this person's hands? And you want to get a great sound bite that addresses that job order, because then what you're going to do is then you're going to spit it, right? You're going to spit it back to them, and it's going to be compelling evidence in the form really of a testimonial. These are the things that are important. So when you prep them right for the interview and they talk about it, you've mentioned it before, and you come up with third-party stories, that's where you're going to be really, really effective. What people say matters. You know the weed whacker, that thing that's all over TV with Jerry the gardener? Do we really care what Jerry the gardener thinks of the weed whacker? You know what? It turns out that we do. Turns out that we do, because when they don't share that, they don't sell nearly as much. So I want all of you to get testimonials all the time right now and put them everywhere I talked about. I want you to play right now, highlight this, or when you get this highlighted or write your notes, I want you on your hottest job order right now, or your hottest few, I want you to make sure you have those words that we talked about in the beginning. You have it down to emotion. And I want you to call back a reference, and I want you to specifically address that reference to that specific job order, just like I just gave you. This is perfect for objections. Okay, so I gave you the example before. They said, no, you know what? He's really great. We really do like him, but, boy, I'd give him an 8.5 out of 10 because he was, timid. I wanted someone more outgoing. What I meant by that was timid. What's important is, people tend to dump a ton of work on people, and I can't just have a yes person in there. I need someone with a backbone. Well, instead of saying, oh, no, Mr. Client, I'm sure he was just nervous and all the stuff we normally say, I want you to call up a reference, and I want you to talk to them about their outgoingness, about whether they're timid, about whether people will get over on them. Okay, now if you hear, oh, yeah, no, he's really timid, oh, people get over on him, your person's not getting the job or they're not sticking anyway, so move on. But you're not going to hear that because most objections aren't really based on reality. They're just some concerns. And what you're going to do is, again, your reference is going to say, my goodness, no way, yada, 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 and you're going to have some great stuff, okay? The more you can use the name of third parties, references you always do, the more you can name a person's name or a company, even better. That's really compelling. But remember, you could always just say, you could always make them third party, even generally. Look, my best clients, my top clients, like the best candidates, the people that are dying to get this job, right? No names are ever mentioned, but you can do that. So why don't you look at any objection that you ever get and come up with your best testimonial against that? Why don't people do that? Well, your fee is too high. All right, well, what's the best way you've overcome someone that thought your fee was too high and now they use you exclusively? You all have clients like that. Or they were dealing with other agencies, or they weren't opening it up to a temp firm, right? Or the commute was too far. The money, they're taking a lateral and they wanted an increase. You all have the stories. So A, I want you to get them because they're really easy to get, and then I just want you to use them. That's going to be your arsenal. Right? That's going to be all that great material you'll have to really convince people. Right? And again, they're all coming down to some basic concept of power persuasion. Okay, the next one ties into all of it, right? So you don't even have to, remember this per se, other than to always have conviction. All things being equal, conviction will outsell non-conviction every single time. Thousands of studies done on it. Right? Because when you have conviction, when you hear the conviction in my voice, right, you're going to buy into this concept more than if I'm just telling you, hey, listen, here's something I read, here's something I thought, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but it's really good stuff, right? The message is that I believe in what I'm telling you, and it's right. Now, I'm not going to get into the Moravian study, but I often have people that will say exactly. That's what the Moravian study, when they dissected words, and, you see the study up there, but basically in UCLA in 1972, they did this big study, and it broke down communication into words, the tonality, right, how you say it, right? Your tempo, your speed, all that sort of stuff, and your body language, moving your hands, which I'm doing right now and you can't see. I'm doing that kind of like I look like a preacher with my hands going out constantly, and that stuff's so important. And what they showed you was words almost don't matter. They do matter. Your words in your script really matter, which is why I spent up to now telling you all about words and different ways to use emotional words and words from third parties. They very much matter. This was incongruous studies. They were showing that if you tell someone I love them, but you don't say it like you love them, and your body language doesn't, they're going to believe the other stuff more. It's not about when everything's in sync. So your words matter, but conviction really does matter. You can see it matters all the time, and how you say it, okay? So you need to always sound excited and confident about this opportunity for a candidate, always. You need to always sound excited when you're pitching a candidate. That's why you want to try to, personally interview or phone interview the person. Don't just get it from another recruiter. Talk to them, because you're going to have more conviction. One of the things I required when I was president of Agilon is I required my outside sales reps that were pitching candidates that never interviewed candidates to have to come in the office and at least interview a couple of people a week. Now, what? Yeah, we're supposed to be selling. I don't want them to do the full interview. We called them second Cs. But I needed them to meet this person. I needed them to see this person's energy. I needed them to be as excited as the person finishing up that interview with the candidate feels, because you can't fake that conviction. Okay, so pitching, conviction, right? And you've all heard it for rookies, hey, fake it till you make it, and it's all true. You got to fake your enthusiasm, you got to fake the conviction, and you got to be the expert there. That's really key. So if we know conviction itself will outsell so many other things, you owe it to yourself to get darn good. And I mean these simple tips that are out there. Stand up. Can you tell that I'm standing right now? No, but you could. Here, listen, okay? I don't know if you can tell now, but I don't know. I'm sitting down now, but I don't know, you're not going to be able to tell because I'm forcing it. But when I stand up, I use a headset. I got a headset on. I'm moving my hands. So everything's working. I feel like I'm in my real MO. I walk around a ton. You should walk around. And until you get this down, these hokey things like using a mirror or using your webcam on your computer to look at yourself regularly is important. You do that so you make sure, again, everything looks like it's working too. If you're in an objection handling situation with somebody, right? And it's getting a little ugly. You want to smile. It's all really, really important. Okay, so you want to, again, the conviction's going to help by having your compelling points already crafted, the testimonials, the reference checks, by finding the thing that gets you most excited about a potential job order or a client or a prospect or a candidate or a recruit, right? What gets you most excited about them, and then talking about them, okay? So, and this is also why, and I have this training in my boot camp for any of you who are interested. It's a recorded boot camp. You'll see it at neilperm.com. But your elevator script, really working on that, really, really critical, okay, so that you can be much more persuasive. Okay, moving along at our nice fast clip. Wow, we've lost like nobody. That's awesome. This is a huge one, okay? And this ties back into emotion, as they all do. But the fear of loss or pain avoidance. This is huge, a huge motivator. The fear of loss and pain avoidance. Now, remember in the beginning when I said we want to break things down to their emotional root, right? Get down to the essence. And when we were talking about that, person looking for someone precise, what they were really looking for was not to be embarrassed or to be made proud, right? Those are two different emotions. The positive one, which is to be made proud, and then the opposite of that is to not be embarrassed, right? They're both the same emotion with a different spin. As much as you can, and you've heard this from other trainers where we call it stirring the wound, right? That's a big Lefkowitz thing, finding the pain. I think that's a big Cahill thing, tearing off the scab. all these horrible terms for our profession, right? All with these horrible wounds, right? But that means we want to find the emotions that drive these people, and always try to work where we can on the negative side, the avoiding the pain, the avoiding the negative things. So even if someone keeps telling you excitement, excitement, I'm looking for excitement, I'm looking for job diversity. Well, what I mean by that is something where I don't do the same thing day in and day out so that I'm not bored. I really want somewhere I can be excited, look forward to coming to work every day. So the excitement's the positive pole, which, look, if you do nothing else, that's great from this webinar. But if you could turn it around to the negative side, which is, again, the opposite of that is boredom, excitement, boredom, excitement, boredom. So you want to talk about the boredom, right? So we're going to talk about that boredom. So in your calls, knowing that these are those 3 main notes you put in send-outs, know that you took the word back, you interviewed them great, you did this during the whole process, and you're now going to like spit it back or try to convince them. You're going to talk to them about, listen, I bet you are just dying to get out of that company, right? Compare what it must be like to get up in the morning to go to ABC Company as much as what it must feel like on a Sunday night. How do you feel on Sunday night working for XYZ? Right? When 60 Minutes comes on, right? For me, that clock was always the weekend's over, right? As soon as you hear the tick-tocking, I know I just made like a Chewbacca sound that was supposed to be a clock ticking. Horrible. All right, you get the point. You're going to stir the wound. You're going to tell stories about that. And this is what motivates people. Again, these aren't nihilisms. These aren't Lefkowitzisms. They aren't Cahillisms. The reason they're embedded in so many of your scripts, although we fail to really train on why that works so much, is because that's what really motivates people. So, I have lots of stories, that I always, tell about this. But, think about it. The MO is that people are going to work a lot harder to try to save $5 than they would to try to earn $5, right? If someone ran off with $5 on your table, all right, you might end up chasing them down a block, filing a police report on or whatever it is, or, again, chasing them, find out their car, try to track it down. On principle or whatever, again, you've just lost something. But how much would you work, how much time would you put in to earn $5? Again, there's some intangibles in there. I laughed because I always used to train this. We went on a work trip for one of our we called it Superstars. It was one of our big events, and it was in Tijuana, Mexico. We went from San Diego, and there's a couple things you can get in Tijuana that are really cheap, right? There's vanilla extract and Kahlua. Those are like the 2 big ones. So people would go in, as soon as we got off the bus in Tijuana, they go into the first cheesy store that they see, and they walk out with 2 gigantic bottles of Kahlua. Now, they're bigger bottles, and they're cheaper. So people, to save $20, went nuts, immediately had to go into the store and hold around these bulky bags all day. What do you think would happen if to that same person, I went up and I said, look, you know what? I don't feel like carrying my bags around. I got my water in here. I got my camera. I don't feel like holding it. I made a mistake, and the bus is locked. Can I pay you $20 to walk around all friggin' day in this heat with my bags? No takers. You'll get none. But people will work harder to avoid losing, to save, than they will to gain something. Okay, that's really big, and that's why you got to stir the wound. Stir the wound. And because people don't want to lose, they want to avoid pain, okay? They're worried about losing something. Scarcity also kind of works in there now. So listen, act now, because this guy is going to be gone, and we're going to have to start all over again. Offer's only good today, yada, 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 right? Okay? So, again, you can use this in a ton of ways that I just mentioned by always getting to the root and the emotional issues, right? So you can for scarcity, let a candidate know, or you're only going to present a few people and that they need to let you know tomorrow, okay? If they're unsure, they need to let you know because you're only going to present 3 and this job's going to be gone, right? We talked about the shelf life, right? How they have to make a decision soon or some of the other best candidates are going to go in there, right? We find the hot buttons, always key, always strip that down, and then we always find the negative side. But I want you to think about all the ways that you can do this. This isn't recreating your business or your desk, right? You do this during the interview, right? Hey, what are the 3 most important things you're looking for? I'm looking for, a group which is a bunch of team players. I'm looking for something where I have growth, and I'm looking for something that has a decent commute, right? Then we say, well, what do you mean by that? Define that for me. And then why is that important to you? And then we get the commutes, work-life balance, and seeing the cute little newborn that they have, and all those things. That's the emotional angle. And the opposite side of that is, well, if a job gives you that flexibility, then we're going to sell about the wonderful stuff that they've seen their newborn, how awesome it is, and there's nothing more important than life. And my goodness, I can't even imagine what it must have been like to have to miss some of that with your kid before and to not see them grow up, right? You talk about all those things together. During the client job order call, same deal. We're going to get it during a matching call, right? During the debrief, we're going to get this stuff all the time. We're going to want to find out what questions were asked to the client, to the candidate, right? How did they answer them? What came up? And we're going to use it to prep others. So again, we're going to use this all of the time. Okay. Moving on. And then we'll make sure we have plenty of time for questions. Comparability, or the theory of relativity. Comparability, or the theory of relativity. This is another phenomenal one. And this works the same way as negotiations work, and the same way, really, that I told you about setting expectations, the hypnosis. Here's what you're going to find, killing the monster while it's tiny. But the bottom line is this: how we use our words, how we use them, dramatically affects the perception of those words. And there are some great stories for it. So we can affect perception, which is what we want to do. In the concept of comparability, we're going to ask for something more than what we want, whether it's a much higher fee than what we want, whether it's a guaranteed acceptance the second you go in, whatever the case is. We're going to ask for something we know we're not going to get. It's more than what we want, because you know what? Sometimes you actually get that. But that's just, hey, that's awesome, that's gravy. But we're going to do it because when we compare, comparability, when we compare the next option to this crazy request, it'll be perceived as much more reasonable and much more doable and much better in that light. So an example, again, going back to Tony Robbins that he used to get, it stuck with me for all of these years. And again, this goes back, again, about 25 years, pre-internet, pre-everything. And it was about the girl who sold the world record number of Girl Scout cookies. And here's how she did it. Everyone else would do it the old-fashioned way, knocking on the door. Hi, this is Sally. Could you buy some cookies? Here. Well, you know, some buy, some don't. What this girl did is she went in and she asked for a $100 donation for her troop. Now, whether it was by design or whatever, I have no idea of the whole backstory to it. So she would go in, not ask for the cookies, but she'd say, hi, I'm little Susie. And I don't know that she said I'm little Susie, but she said, I'm little Susie, and you know, we're trying to raise money for our Girl Scout troops. The best way that you can help us is by writing a check to the Girl Scouts of America for $100. And I'll tell you, here's where it's great. Here's what we do with it. And you could see the people getting uncomfortable. Now, she actually got a couple of checks for $100. Not many, and that isn't the point of the story. So after they were all uncomfortable and feeling uneasy, and them giving their excuses and their objections and why they're dealing with the other agency, or, you know, the Boy Scouts, I guess, in this case, or whatever it is, she'd say, okay, can you at least buy a couple boxes of cookies? And yeah, sure. Compared to what she was asking, they're off the hook with a couple of boxes of cookies. So again, that's tremendous. It's why if you're in the perm side of the business, you should always ask for a very high fee, even if your policy is doing 25%. Always ask for a 30% fee. It's why at Agilon I changed our fees to a max of 35%. Did some people get them? Uh-huh. I think John on this call, if I'm not mistaken, got a 35 back then, one of the first, I think. But again, that's why you do it, right? So, and then you could settle back down. It also is in negotiations, the same reason. You use this comparability concept. It's built into all sort of negotiation strategy. It's why you can never settle and say, I'll tell you what, let's just let's just agree on 8,000, because that's where you're starting, and you're never going to get that. Right? You want to deal with this comparability concept. Very, very key. It's why you want to ask for the exclusive all the time with your clients. I need the exclusive. I need you to interview in my office. That's what EIO is. Okay, I need you to do all these things. I need guaranteed times. Okay, look, I need you to guarantee to see my best 3 candidates. If this is temp, not work with anyone else, and we'll pick the person, and they'll start on Monday. Okay? So, again, understand we do that because the concept of comparability is huge, the theory of relativity. Why don't you do it all the time? And I know there are some of you who do. Most of you don't. And I'm telling you from experience and working with thousands and thousands of recruiters, most of you don't because you're scared of the rejection. But I don't get that because we don't care about the rejection because you're going into it expecting the rejection. You're going into 35%. What you're really scared of is that tension that's being created, that tension. Right, but why are you scared of the tension? The tension is exactly what the concept of comparability is supposed to do. So note that they're feeling more uncomfortable. You're not because you know you're going to settle at 20% and not 35. You know that you'll take 20 if they give you an exclusive and not even guarantee to see the people. Whatever. So you always go in there a lot higher. This is also true of the concept, this was really big, Tom Peters made this world famous, right, of the concept of under-promise and over-deliver. Under-promise and over-deliver. Now I want you to think about this because this ties in right to here. This is the same concept, that we're talking about, but that has to do really with customer service. But again, it ties very much into sales. Well, we know that if you under-promise something, you set an expectation level. You set the perception of what they are expecting to see. And when you go above that line by over-delivering from that expectation, you create great joy. Notice he doesn't say over-deliver, which is what everyone said up until then. He went out of his way to say under-promise and over-deliver. You want to create that nice big relative gap. The two things really to be compared to. But think about how powerful that concept is. Again, it's the same as negotiations. One of the best stories ever is a true story, and probably 30 on this call will know what I'm talking about, but if you were around and you did business travel back in the early 80s, late 70s, you would see that all of the local TV shows all had a segment, just like sports and weather. They had a segment at the end of their broadcast about on-time performance for the airlines. That's right. Now we show you the on-time performance. Pan Am, Eastern, Braniff, right? Any other names, TWA. And they would show their on-time performance. It was a nightmare. People were just, everyone was in uproar with deregulation and the delays, and this is crazy. And they hired these experts, and basically one guy said, all right, maybe it was two guys, there's nothing we can do about it. We've got all these different hubs. We've got all these other things. It's one airport's predicated upon the success of the other. There's flights that switch and change and come in, and they're going to be late. So what they said was, we can't change the real outcome, but we can use hypnosis. We can hypnotize them. We can use the power of suggestion. We can affect their perception and their expectation, and therefore get rid of the problem. So what did they do? Well, those of you, the 30 of you out there, know exactly what happened. What they did was they said, you know what? Right now, it takes from Neil flying from New York to Boston. It says it leaves at 11 and gets in at 11:47. A 47-minute flight. Well, guess what? It's 47 minutes in the air. They didn't take enough time for it to leave the gate and taxi and the inevitable delays. So starting literally the next day, all airlines changed for per flights the estimated flight times. So now when I fly from New York to Boston, which is the same, 39 minutes in the air, by the way, what does it say? It says I leave at 11, I get in at 12:35. That's why when you get in the air, and today's flight time will be 3 hours and 19 minutes, you're like, oh, awesome, that's great news, because it says 4.5 or 5 hours on my itinerary. And that's when the pilot gets to say, and don't worry, we'll be on time because we're going to make it up in the air. You give me a freaking break. You're going to make it up in the air. That's like a Seinfeld bit. If you can make it up in the air, why don't you just go as fast as you can all the time? I'm not known for my impersonations, so do not hold my training against me on it. But right, you guys get that concept. The other one, and again, last, and then I got one more point, and we go to questions. But this whole concept, again, I think is so powerful because you could see it in food delivery. That's another great one. If a restaurant tells me that my food is going to be delivered, I'll have it within a half hour, and they take 40 minutes, I am livid. I mean, at the 30-minute mark, where's the food? 32 minutes, 35 minutes. What do you like at the 40-minute mark? Is 40 minutes unreasonable for a restaurant cooking me a fresh meal to my order that's located 6.2 miles from my house? Is 45 minutes unreasonable? No, but they set the expectations, and that created my lividity, right? Same deal as if someone says, look, we're really swamped here. It's going to take us 50 minutes to an hour, and I get it in 40 minutes. I'm thrilled to death. I will use them again. Okay, so again, this concept of relativity is hugely powerful on a customer service side and on a sales service side, and you need to use it. All right, last tip till we get into Q&A. People like people who like them. The old president of my company used to say that all the time. People like people who like them. Flatter to the moon and back, Alice, right? So think about it. But how can you use this? Now, you already know, okay, I'm going to pretend I like them. I mean, salespeople do that. And, you know, hey, that's okay. It turns out we end up enjoying liking people when we really do, and they like us back, okay? But you need to be engaged. You need to be present. You need to really be there. Again, this is critical on the candidate side of the business when they're, you know, we're working on jobs, the client's paying the fee. The more that someone feels like you like them, the more they're going to be persuaded by you, the more they're going to want to give you business. But that's not enough. There's some great things that you can do. You already know, again, to show a candidate, ideally, and certainly a client, I'm sure all of you go out of your way to make sure on your client visits or your calls that you're asking them about their family, about their hobbies, and all that stuff, and that's great. But there's lots that you can do. Flatter and compliment, and do it as much as you can. Don't underestimate this. It is a huge people persuader. Huge. I mean, again, I'm so aware of this, but the people that, I don't care if they have a hidden agenda. When they write me like, Neil, I got to say, you're awesome at this. I love this. There's one of the blah, 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 blah. Fine. And then a day or two later, they email me back with a favor. I'm all over the favor for these people. Flatter and compliment, flatter and compliment. But I want you to think about how you can use this in your business much more strategically. And you have the ability to be the broker between your clients and your candidates. Okay, so think about how you can use that. Right, so you could, for one, you could always tell the client something that the candidate said about them. Hey, Steve, I'm glad you're really looking forward to, maybe hiring, Jack. He's one of your top candidates. Listen, Jack told me that he thought you were awesome. He loved the time with you. He just said he's interviewed a lot of people. You're one of those guys that he really clicked with. Those sort of comments are going to make him like Jack more. You don't want to rely on Jack being a great salesperson and saying it. Some people feel funny saying that. But when you flatter your client, all right, that words that the candidate said, and when you flatter your candidate on words that the client said, that's going to go hugely far. Now, again, you should also be doing that. So tell every candidate that you think you might want to work with about why you're impressed. They will like you a lot more. Listen, I got to tell you, you've really, I am really impressed with how quickly you seem to have learned this industry. Do it. They will like you more. Same deal with your clients. And the good news is on the client side, unless you're dealing with low-level HR folk, right, most of the clients that you deal with have already become hiring managers. So that in and of itself is impressive. So I want you to flatter, flatter, and flatter. Okay? So I have a great free ebook on this. You'll get it as part of the free training at thedynamicsale.com. Okay? I just, again, want you to remember that these are proven and incredibly powerful, and they are used to train across all industries, and you name it. All right? It starts with the emotional level, and it starts with finding the words. right? It's all about that. And then people want what they can't have, and reciprocity, and all these things that we talked about. I need you to use them. Start with a couple of tips and get them in there, okay? If you like this training, I've got a ton more, but you'll see that just sign up for the dynamicsale.com. Also, we got a great free ebook. Again, it's independentrecruiting.com. You can go there. That's the ARG site. I'd love to work with a whole bunch of you there. And at this point, and they're the boot camp links, but you'll get that later. I want to see if there's any questions. Jonathan, Travis, do we have any questions you want to read out?
No, feel free, everybody that's still on the line, we still have a number of, almost all the attendees are still on the line. Feel free to send in your questions, and I'll go ahead and read them out to you. We'll keep the airways open in the next couple of minutes for any questions. I would say, I know you mentioned John. I think that you had said that John had made a placement in around that 35% range. He did mention that he would have actually charged 40% if he was allowed to. So thought I'd
Yeah, pretty sure it was him. It's funny. He's a training junkie, but that stuff works. You could also email me if you have any other questions, and mention, since a lot of you are still on this call, I'm going to send you out later today or tomorrow at the latest. You'll get a PDF and handouts with all these links. So do we have any questions? If not, I think we can probably wrap it.
Yeah, so as a wrap, first I want to thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar. We will have the recorded webinar that we'll be able to send out, and we should have that wrapped up and downloaded today and be able to email that out. So be looking for an email from the Sendouts team. On behalf of the entire Sendouts team and also Neil, I want to thank you for joining today's webinar. Also, I would be doing everybody a disservice and not mention that if you do not have a solution in place, feel free to contact us here at Sendouts. You can actually reach out to me here personally at 314-854-5014. I'll be more than happy to address any questions or concerns you might have. And Neil is also available to address any questions you might have as well, as we're just both here as a resource. So appreciate everybody joining on the line today for today's webinar, and hopefully it's been impactful. Neil, I appreciate your time, and as always, great job today.
Thank you. Thank you. Great. Love working with you guys. So, yeah, really, guys, use Sendouts, man. I love it. Use it myself. Carpe diem, everyone.
Have a great day.